Hey guys, today we step into a space that feels so familiar, yet so often misunderstood. The space between your thoughts and your words. You've been there before, standing in a conversation, heart racing just slightly, your mind alive with ideas. But what actually comes out of your mouth doesn't match the brilliance inside. You walk away replaying it. Why didn't I say what I really meant? Why do they speak with such ease while I stumble on my own sentences? You know that feeling, like your voice shrinks just when you want it to rise. Here's the truth you've been waiting to hear. The ability to speak smart isn't some natural-born talent handed to a chosen few. It's a skill, tangible, learnable, and fully within your reach. And it isn't about stuffing your sentences with bigger words or putting on a mask to sound intellectual. Speaking smart is about communicating with such clarity, structure, and presence that your voice is not only heard, but respected. Your message lands. Your presence is felt, and people remember you, not for being the loudest in the room, but for being the most intentional. Pause for a second and let that sink in. Imagine walking into a room of strangers, colleagues, or even potential partners. You haven't presented your resume. You haven't shown your skill set. Yet within those first few lines you speak, judgments are being made about your intelligence, your confidence, your credibility. You're not even aware of it, but a silent evaluation is happening. Do I trust this person? Do I respect them? Do I want to listen further? That's the hidden weight of your voice. It builds your identity in real time. Science backs this up. Studies have shown that people form impressions within milliseconds of hearing your voice. Before they see your actions, before they understand your history, they're already shaping a story about who you are, based on tone, clarity, and the rhythm of your speech. And once that impression is set, it colors everything that follows. That's why speaking smart matters now more than ever. In today's fast-moving world, where attention is short and decisions are made quickly, your words aren't just tools. They're the gatekeepers of opportunity. Think about the environments you move through every day. Work, relationships, social circles. Every single one of them is influenced by the way you communicate. Imagine two candidates walking into a job interview. Both are equally qualified. Both have the same degrees, the same technical skills. But one stumbles through sentences, fills their answers with and kind of, and jumps from thought to thought without structure. The other takes a breath, responds with clarity, frames their points with order, and grounds their ideas with examples. Who do you think walks out with the offer? The one who speaks smart. Not because they were necessarily smarter, but because their clarity built trust. Clarity builds trust. Trust shapes decisions, and decisions open doors. You see this in leaders throughout history. Think of the figures whose voices carried beyond their words. Leaders who could stand in front of a crowd and command attention without raising their volume. They didn't win influence by shouting. They won it by choosing their words with intention, by pausing at the right moments, by telling stories that echoed long after they stopped speaking. Their voices carried weight because their communication carried design. Now let's turn to you. Picture yourself in those high-pressure moments, walking into a big meeting, pitching an idea, sitting across from someone who might change your future. What if, instead of shrinking or fumbling, you carried yourself with the calm confidence of someone who knows their words matter? What if you spoke in a way that made others lean forward, curious, invested? That is what speaking smart does. It transforms not just how others hear you, but how the world responds to you. And here's the shift you must embrace. This isn't about pretending. It's not about sounding like someone else. Speaking smart means tapping into your own voice, your authentic presence, and shaping it with clarity and intention so it carries the power it deserves. You don't have to be the loudest. You don't need to master a perfect accent. You don't need to have the highest IQ. You just need a growth mindset, simple techniques, and the willingness to practice until communication feels natural, confident, and strong. Because speaking smart isn't limited to public speeches or interviews. It touches every corner of your life. It's in the way you resolve a conflict without escalating it. It's in how you pitch an idea so it sparks action. It's in how you express love, gratitude, or vision in your relationships. It's in the quiet confidence that allows you to step into any room and know that your voice will hold its ground. Let's make this practical. Every time you speak, you're doing one of two things: building credibility or slowly losing it. There's no middle ground. Your words are either adding weight to your presence or letting it slip through the cracks. That's why people who learn to speak smart often find themselves rising faster, attracting more opportunities, and building deeper connections. They're not better than you. They've just learned how to use their voice as the most powerful tool they already own. But here's where it gets exciting. The brain actually rewards clarity. When you explain something in a way that's simple, structured, and emotionally resonant, the listener's brain literally lights up. Dopamine, the chemical of pleasure, is released. People feel good when they understand you, and when someone makes us feel good, we remember them. We trust them. We're drawn to them. This means that every time you speak with clarity, you're not just communicating. You're creating an emotional imprint that makes people want to listen again. Think about your own experiences. Have you ever listened to someone explain an idea so simply that you walked away feeling smarter yourself? That's the power of clarity. It doesn't just make you sound intelligent. It makes the listener feel intelligent too. And that feeling bonds them to you. So how do you start stepping into this identity of a smart speaker? First, recognize the weight your words already carry. They're not filler. They're not background noise. They're instruments of influence, shaping how others see you and how you see yourself. The moment you begin treating your voice with intention, everything shifts. You stop rushing. You stop over-explaining. You stop apologizing for your presence. Instead, you start shaping your ideas with rhythm, choosing your words with care, and delivering them with the calmness of someone who knows they belong in the conversation. You might be thinking, but what if I mess up? What if I forget my words? What if I don't sound smart enough? Let me ease that fear. Smart communication isn't about perfection. It's about presence. People won't remember every detail you say. They'll remember how you made them feel. Did you project confidence? Did you offer clarity? Did you connect? That's what sticks. Even the most powerful speakers stumble sometimes. What makes them unforgettable is not flawless delivery, but the conviction behind their words. As you move through this journey, you'll start noticing something remarkable. Speaking smart doesn't just change how others respond to you, it changes how you see yourself. The more clearly you express your thoughts, the more confident you become in your own intelligence. The more people listen when you speak, the more you believe your voice deserves to be heard. It's a cycle of growth. Clarity breeds confidence. Confidence breeds presence. presence breeds influence. And in today's world, influence is everything. We live in a noisy environment. Scrolls, swipes, endless reels, instant decisions. People are flooded with voices, but attention spans are shrinking. If you want to cut through the noise, you can't just be another voice. You have to be the voice that carries, the one that speaks with purpose, with calm, with resonance, the one that makes people stop scrolling, stop swiping, and start listening. Here's a challenge for you. Think about one upcoming moment where your voice will matter. Maybe it's a meeting, a date, a difficult conversation, or even just introducing yourself to someone new. Instead of letting that moment slide by, approach it with the mindset of a smart speaker. Take a breath. Choose your words. Speak slower than you normally would. And notice how differently people respond when your presence matches your intention. Because when you learn to speak smart, you don't just shift conversations, you shift futures. Opportunities begin to appear, not because the world suddenly changed, but because people now see you as the leader, the partner, the voice they can trust. And all of that begins with this single realization. Your words shape your world. Speak them with clarity, and watch how doors open that once felt locked. This is where your journey begins. From this moment on, you're not just someone who talks. You're someone who communicates with intention, confidence, and impact. And as we move forward together, you'll discover the tools, the techniques, and the mindsets that turn this skill into second nature. But for now, hold on to this truth. The way you speak matters. It matters more than ever. And when you master it, you don't just change conversations, you change your life. Imagine this. You're sitting across from someone whose words seem to flow like music. They pause at just the right moments. Their sentences feel organized without effort. And even though they're not using complicated words, you find yourself drawn in, trusting them, believing them. You wonder, why does their voice make so much sense while mine sometimes feels scattered? The answer isn't luck. It's not even talent. It's science. There is a rhythm and a structure inside every intelligent-sounding voice. And once you understand how the brain processes sound, you can shape your own words so they land with clarity and authority. Here's what research reveals. The brain craves order. Just as we find comfort in rhythm when we listen to music, our minds prefer speech patterns that are steady, structured, and easy to follow. When someone speaks in a way that respects this rhythm, slightly slower, with purposeful pauses and emphasis, your brain rewards you with attention. That's why great speakers sound almost musical. They are not rushing to fill silence. They are giving each thought space to breathe. Now let's bring this down to earth. Think about the last time you listened to a TED Talk or a podcast that kept you hooked. The speaker likely wasn't drowning you in information. Instead, they used pauses as punctuation, lowering their tone to anchor important points and lifting it slightly to show energy. They guided you through an emotional landscape where your brain could both process and feel the message. That's not accidental. It's deliberate science applied with art. The fascinating part is that clarity, not complexity, is what makes your brain label someone as intelligent. In fact, studies show that people who speak at a slightly slower pace, with well-placed pauses, are often judged as smarter and more trustworthy than those who rush through their words. It's not about dragging sentences or sounding robotic. It's about giving your listener the gift of understanding. When your ideas land clearly, you appear credible, even if your words are simple. This means you don't need to memorize a dictionary to sound smart. You need rhythm, you need tone, you need intention. Imagine saying the phrase, "I believe in you." If you rush it flatly, it feels like an afterthought. But if you breathe, slow down, and place a pause, "I believe in you." Suddenly, the words carry weight. The silence between them makes the message powerful. Your brain processes the pause as emphasis, a signal that this matters, and the listener feels it. Let's talk about tone. Your tone is the emotional wrapping around your message. Words alone are never neutral. They take on life through how you say them. A flat "I'm fine" can feel distant. The same two words with warmth can feel comforting. The same words with tension can feel defensive. Tone shapes meaning, and smart speakers understand this instinctively. They don't just deliver information, they deliver emotion. They know their tone is not decoration, it's interpretation. And then there's emphasis, the subtle art of guiding focus. Take the sentence, "I never said she stole the money." Depending on which word you emphasize, the meaning shifts entirely. Stress never, and you're denying the act. Stress she, and you imply someone else did. Stress money, and you hint it was something else that was stolen. One sentence, multiple meanings, all based on where you shine the spotlight. Smart speaking is not just about the words you choose, but how you guide the listener's attention with your voice. Nonverbal sounds matter too. A sigh, a breath, the rise and fall of your vocal inflection. These cues carry emotion before logic even registers. If you sound rushed, people feel anxious. If you sound calm, they relax. If you vary your pitch, they stay engaged. Your voice is not just transmitting data, it's orchestrating feelings. That's why Martin Luther King Jr.'s "I Have a Dream" speech moved generations. The words were powerful, yes, but it was the cadence, the rhythm, the conviction in his tone that electrified the message. And here's a hidden gem. The brain rewards clarity with dopamine. When someone explains something in a way that is easy to grasp, our minds literally light up with pleasure. That's why you enjoy listening to certain voices. You feel good because your brain feels aligned. It's like being given a puzzle piece that finally fits. You don't just hear the speaker, you like them, because they satisfy a fundamental craving for order and meaning. So how do you begin using this science in your daily life? Start with 3 habits. First, slow down just a little. Not so much that it feels unnatural, but enough to let each sentence land. Rushing doesn't make you sound smarter. It makes you sound nervous. Second, emphasize the words that matter. Use your voice as a highlighter, guiding the listener's attention. If everything is flat, nothing stands out. But if certain words carry weight, your message sticks. Third, respect silence. A pause is never empty. It's a canvas where your words echo. It gives people time to think, to feel, to connect. Picture yourself in a meeting, making a point. Most people rush, afraid of silence, but imagine you deliver your key line. Then pause. Everyone in the room sits with your words, digesting them. That pause doesn't weaken you, it strengthens you. It signals confidence. It says you believe in what you've just said enough to let it breathe. That's science in action, but it feels like charisma. You might be wondering, but what if silence feels awkward? That's where practice reshapes perception. At first, pauses may feel heavy, but to your listener, they feel intentional. Think of it like music. The silence between notes isn't empty. It's what makes the melody possible. Without space, There's only noise. Without pauses, your words blur together. And here's something powerful to remember. Your listener's brain processes sound slightly slower than your mouth produces it. This means when you rush, you overwhelm them. When you pause, you give them time to align. Speaking smart is less about proving your intelligence and more about making your listener feel intelligent too. When they feel smart around you, they trust you, and trust is the real currency of communication. Let's bring this into a practical exercise. The next time you have a conversation, focus on one thing: rhythm. Instead of spilling words, imagine you're painting with sound. Short sentences for impact. A pause after something important. Lower your tone when you want to anchor a point. Lift it when you want energy. Notice how the other person reacts. You'll see their body shift forward. Their eyes stay on you longer. Their responses more engaged. That's not magic. That's neuroscience playing in your favor. Think of your voice as music, your pauses as rests, your emphasis as percussion, and your tone as melody. Together, they create an experience people want to listen to. And here's the secret. People may not consciously notice what you're doing, but they'll feel it. They'll walk away saying, "I don't know what it is about you, but you sound so clear, so grounded, so easy to follow." That's the moment you'll know you're shaping perception through the science of sound. This isn't about copying anyone else's style. It's about tuning into your own voice and learning to play it like an instrument. Everyone has the capacity to sound intelligent, because intelligence isn't judged by vocabulary alone. It's judged by how you make others feel when they listen. Clarity comforts. Rhythm reassures. Tone inspires. And once you grasp this, you'll begin to see communication differently. It's not a battle of who can speak the most. It's about who can create the clearest, most resonant experience. You'll notice yourself pausing more, emphasizing less often, but with more power, allowing silence to serve you instead of scare you. You'll stop trying to rush through conversations and start guiding them with deliberate presence. That's what speaking smart is at its core. Not showing off, but showing up. Not overwhelming, but aligning. Not flooding people with words, but giving them rhythm, tone, and space that make your message unforgettable. Because when your words land like music, people don't just hear you, they remember you. When most people think of sounding smart, their first instinct is to reach for big words. They imagine that stacking complex vocabulary together will prove intelligence. But let me ask you this. How often have you listened to someone speak with overly complicated phrases and thought, "Wow, that was impressive," only to realize you didn't actually understand what they were saying? The truth is, complicated words don't make you sound smart. They often make you sound disconnected. Real intelligence isn't about confusing others. It's about making yourself impossible to misunderstand. Albert Einstein once said, "If you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough." That's the gold standard of communication. The smartest voices in history didn't aim to show off vocabulary. They aimed to connect. They wanted their message to travel, not just to impress in the moment. And here's the shift you need to embrace. Being understood is the highest form of intelligence in speech. Think about it like this. Language is a bridge. If you pack that bridge with too much weight, fancy words, jargon, endless complexity, it collapses. People stop listening, or worse, they nod politely while tuning you out. But if you design the bridge with clarity, strong supports, and direct pathways, people walk across with ease. They don't just hear your message, they carry it with them. Let me give you a real-world example. Imagine someone in a meeting saying, "The juxtaposition of divergent ideologies creates an epistemological dissonance in our socio-political narrative." Sounds intellectual, right? But most listeners would either zone out or quietly feel inadequate for not understanding. Now compare that to, when opposite beliefs collide, it creates confusion in society's story. Same idea, but suddenly everyone in the room understands. And that understanding makes the message powerful. Because clarity doesn't diminish intelligence, it amplifies it. So here's where you step in. Instead of trying to sound smart by adding more, focus on trimming. Speaking smart means choosing words that land, not words that decorate. It means aiming for connection, not applause. And it begins with the simplest rule. If a word hides your message, remove it. If it helps, keep it. Let's talk verbs. Verbs are the engines of sentences. Weak verbs slow you down. Strong verbs propel you forward. For example, instead of saying, "He made the decision," say, "He decided." Instead of, "She gave help," say, "She helped." Notice how the sentence becomes tighter, stronger, more confident. Smart speakers use precise verbs because precision communicates authority. Now consider filler words, the silent thieves of credibility. Like, just, basically, kind of. They sneak into your speech and clutter it without you even noticing. They don't add meaning, they add noise. Imagine someone saying, "I was, just kind of trying to explain it." The message feels unsure, weak. Now strip away the fluff. "I was trying to explain it." Clean, direct, confident. Which version do you trust more? This doesn't mean you must speak like a robot, trimming every casual phrase. Naturalness matters too. But the habit of leaning on filler words undermines you, especially in moments when you want your voice to carry weight. Replace fillers with silence. Pause instead. Silence says more than clutter ever will. And here's a strategy that works wonders. Create a smart word bank. Every week, choose 5 useful words that are powerful, but not pretentious. Words like clarity, purpose, authentic, strategy, impact, practice. Weaving them into your speech naturally, not forced. Over time, they'll become part of your natural voice. The key is not to flood your sentences with them, but to let them sharpen your message when the moment calls for it. Think about some of the greatest communicators alive today. Leaders, interviewers, authors. They don't sound smart because they use obscure vocabulary. They sound smart because they use words that people feel. They speak in a way that makes complex things accessible. Oprah doesn't confuse you. She connects with you. Simon Sinek doesn't overwhelm you with theory. He inspires you with simplicity. Brené Brown doesn't try to sound superior. She sounds human, which is exactly why she's trusted. The smartest vocabulary is human vocabulary. Words that connect rather than divide. Words that transfer knowledge rather than showcase it. Words that make people lean in rather than pull back. So how do you start shaping your vocabulary into a smarter tool? Here's a 3-step method you can use every single day. Step 1. Awareness. Record yourself speaking on any topic for 1 minute. Play it back and count the filler words. Notice the long, complicated phrases that could be simpler. Awareness is the first step to growth. Step 2. Replace. For every filler word, practice replacing it with either silence or a stronger word. Instead of, "I think maybe we should," say, "I believe we should." Instead of, "I just wanted to add," say, "One point to add." The difference is subtle, but powerful. Step 3. Expand your smart word bank week by week. Write down words you admire in conversations, podcasts, or books. Practice them until they feel like part of you. Then let them flow naturally into your conversations. Over time, you'll notice your speech becoming tighter, clearer, and more confident. Here's a moment to picture. Imagine you're explaining an idea to a child. You could use technical jargon, or you could strip it down to the essence. If you can make a child understand, you can make anyone understand. That doesn't make your message smaller. It makes your intelligence shine brighter. Because clarity isn't dumbing down, it's leveling up. Smart vocabulary isn't about performing with words. It's about connecting through them. It's not a contest of who knows the most, but a bridge of who can connect the most. And when you focus on connection, people don't just hear you, they trust you. Trust is built not by showing off, but by showing up, by choosing words that serve your listener, not your ego, by speaking in a way that makes people feel included rather than excluded, by remembering that every word you use is either building a bridge or creating a wall. So here's the challenge for you. This week, notice your language. Trim one filler word. Replace one complicated phrase with a simpler one. Add one powerful, precise word that feels natural. Little by little, your vocabulary becomes sharper, smarter, and more magnetic. And here's the irony. You'll notice something fascinating when you start speaking with clarity. People will call you brilliant. They'll say, "You explain things so well." They'll lean in, respect you, remember you. Not because you used the fanciest words in the room, but because you used the words that mattered. That's the paradox of vocabulary. The smarter you try to sound, the less smart you often seem. But the simpler and clearer you are, the more intelligent you appear. Because at the end of the day, intelligence in communication isn't about how much you know. It's about how much others understand. And once you master this, you'll notice how every conversation begins to shift. People stop asking you to repeat yourself. They stop glazing over. They start nodding, smiling, taking notes, quoting you later. That's the ultimate test. You know you've spoken smartly when your words outlive the moment. Words are not trophies to display. They are arrows to land. Choose them well, sharpen them with clarity, and release them with confidence. When you do, you'll discover the true power of vocabulary, not in complexity, but in connection. Words by themselves are powerful, but words without structure are like bricks scattered across the ground. They might be solid, they might be heavy, but without a plan, they never form a wall, a house, or anything worth stepping inside. Structure is the blueprint of communication. Without it, your ideas drift like clouds, hard to grasp, impossible to hold. With it, your thoughts stack like steps on a staircase, lifting your listener higher and higher until they reach the top with you. You've felt the difference before. Think back to a conversation where someone rambled endlessly, jumping from one half-finished idea to another. You tried to follow, but every sentence seemed to open a new door without ever closing the last one. Confusing, right? Now contrast that with someone who lays out their point, step by step. They set the stage, make the point, then close it with confidence. The second speaker probably didn't use more words. In fact, they may have used fewer. But the order of those words gave their message clarity, flow, and power. The human brain is wired to love patterns, stories, songs, speeches. All of them lean on predictable structures because our minds crave organization. When your words follow a recognizable rhythm, your audience can relax into listening instead of struggling to decode what you mean. That's why structure makes you sound instantly smarter. It's not about being more knowledgeable. It's about being more digestible. One of the simplest and strongest frameworks is the three-part flow. Setup, core, close. It's universal. You begin by setting the stage, painting the picture, giving context, asking the key question. Then you deliver your core idea, the essence of what you want remembered. Finally, you close, summarizing or suggesting the action that ties it together. This framework appears everywhere, from presidential speeches to courtroom arguments to casual conversations. Why? Because it works. Picture someone asking you, "What's your opinion on leadership?" Without structure, you might ramble about qualities, examples, and random thoughts. But with setup, core, close, it's clean. Setup. Leadership isn't about titles, it's about impact. Core. A great leader listens more than they speak, sets the tone with action, and inspires by consistency. Close. So to me, leadership is influence, not position. 3 lines, complete, clear, and confident. That's the difference structure makes. Another tool is the rule of 3. Our brains find comfort in trios. They're simple, balanced, and sticky. Think of timeless phrases: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Government of the people, by the people, for the people. 3 ideas, bound together, remembered forever. When you're making a point, framing it in 3s not only sounds smart, it makes your message memorable. For example, there are 3 reasons this idea will succeed. It's cost-effective, it's scalable, and it's proven. Suddenly, your thought feels strategic, not scattered. Here's another technique: signposting. This means guiding your listener with verbal road signs. Phrases like, "Let me explain," "Here's why that matters," or "There are 2 things you should know." These small markers reassure the listener that you're leading them somewhere, not just wandering. They make you sound thoughtful before you've even made the point. And then there's storytelling as structure. Humans are hardwired for narrative. From ancient campfires to modern TED stages, stories have always been the vehicle for meaning. But a story isn't just a memory. It's a structure that gives your point shape. You begin with a setup, the situation. Introduce the conflict, the problem. Share the resolution, the action or insight. And finish with the message, the lesson. Even a 30-second story follows this arc, and that arc makes your message stick in ways raw data never could. Consider this example. You're in a meeting, and someone says, "We need to prepare better for presentations." That's fine. But now imagine they say, "When I was 17, I gave a speech and forgot every word. Standing there, blank. I realized the pain of being unprepared. Since then, I always practice 3 times before stepping on stage." Suddenly, their point isn't just a suggestion. It's alive. It's felt. It's remembered. That's the power of a structured story. Now let's look at unstructured communication in real life. Imagine someone saying, "I think we should do this project because it feels right." Vague, weak. Now compare it with, "We should pursue this project for 3 reasons. First, it solves a customer pain point. Second, we already have the tools and team to deliver. Third, it aligns with our long-term vision." That second version doesn't just sound smarter, it inspires trust. Because structured speech signals that you've thought it through. You're not reacting, you're presenting, and people respect that. But here's the beauty. Structure doesn't limit you. It frees you. Without it, you're juggling words, hoping they land. With it, you can relax, knowing you have a path. Even when you're nervous, even when your mind goes blank, you can fall back on the structure, setup, core, close, or 3 points, or a quick story. These frameworks aren't scripts, they're safety nets. So how do you build the habit of speaking with structure? Start small. Before you answer a question or share an idea, take a single breath and ask yourself, what's my framework? Maybe it's 3 points. Maybe it's a quick setup and close. Maybe it's a mini story. That single pause can transform chaos into clarity. Here's a simple exercise. Every day, pick one common question and practice answering it with structure. For example, what do you do? Instead of rambling, try setup, core, close. Setup: I help businesses tell their story. Core: I focus on sharpening their message so it's clear, persuasive, and unforgettable. Close: in short, I make sure their voice cuts through the noise. Notice how this version feels polished, confident, and complete. That's practice turning into presence. And once you master these structures, you'll notice your conversations shifting. People stop interrupting you because they sense direction. They start nodding because they can follow. They remember what you said because it was packaged in a way their brain loves. Remember, smart communication isn't about stuffing more into your words. It's about giving your words shape so they can stand tall. Structure is how you take your scattered bricks and build something worth remembering. And when you do, your listener doesn't just hear you, they climb with you, step by step, to the top of your idea. You've seen it before. Someone walks into a room, says only a handful of words, and yet suddenly all attention turns to them. Their voice doesn't have to be loud. Their sentences aren't overflowing with fancy words. What makes them magnetic is something invisible yet undeniable: confidence. It's the quality that makes people listen even before they fully understand what's being said. Confidence is contagious. It spreads from the speaker into the listener, building trust, authority, and presence. Now here's the important distinction. Confidence isn't arrogance. It's not the chest-puffed, look at me kind of energy. It's not about dominating a conversation or trying to impress everyone in the room. Real confidence is quieter, steadier, more grounded. It's the unshakable belief that what you're saying matters and that your voice deserves to be heard. Arrogance tries to prove worth. Confidence assumes it. Here's the truth that should set you free. You don't have to feel confident in order to sound confident. Even the most polished speakers in the world still get nervous. Their hands sometimes tremble. Their voices sometimes waver. But what separates them from the crowd is this: they've trained themselves to carry on as though they belong, even when nerves show up. They understand that confidence is a performance of belief until that belief becomes second nature. Think of it like this. Imagine you're walking across a shaky bridge. If you stare at your feet and worry about falling, every step feels unstable. But if you lift your gaze, keep your shoulders back, and walk forward with intention, suddenly the bridge feels sturdier. Your body leads, and your mind follows. The same is true in speaking. When your posture, tone, and pacing communicate confidence, your brain and your audience begin to believe it. Start with your body. Before you speak a word, your posture is already telling a story. Slumped shoulders, fidgeting hands, darting eyes, these silently whisper doubt. but an open stance, relaxed shoulders, and steady eye contact signal presence before your first sentence even lands. Think of your body as the stage for your voice. If the stage looks shaky, the performance suffers. If the stage looks grounded, the performance shines. Now move to your tone. Confident speakers use their voice with intention. They don't rush to the end of their sentences. They don't let every statement rise as if it's a question. They anchor their words with downward inflection, signaling certainty. This doesn't mean sounding flat or robotic. It means allowing your tone to carry assurance. The moment you believe in your own words enough to deliver them steadily, your audience feels that assurance too. And then, there's pacing. Nervous speakers often fill every second with words, terrified of silence. But silence is not your enemy. A pause is not proof of weakness. It's proof of thought. When you pause, you tell your audience, "I'm in control of this moment. I'm letting my words land before moving on." The pause gives your message gravity. Think of it like bolding your speech. Let's contrast two speakers pitching the same idea. Speaker A says, I think we should, maybe try a new marketing strategy because it could kind of help. Their words wobble under filler and hesitation. Speaker B says, I believe a new marketing strategy will help us reach our audience more effectively. Here's why. Same idea, but one is drowned in doubt, while the other cuts through with conviction. You already know who gets remembered. But what if you don't feel that confidence inside? What if every cell in your body is buzzing with nerves? That's where practice comes in. Confidence is a muscle, not a personality trait. And like any muscle, it grows through repetition, discomfort, and training. You don't wait for it to magically appear. You build it. Here are a few powerful ways to start building your confidence muscle. 1. Practice out loud. Don't just think about what you'd say. Speak it. Record yourself explaining your ideas. Try saying them 3, 4, 10 different ways. At first, it may sound stiff, but soon your voice will relax into the message. The more familiar the words feel in your mouth, the less fear will control you when the moment arrives. 2. Visualize success. Before a conversation or presentation, close your eyes for 30 seconds and picture yourself speaking clearly, confidently, and calmly. Feel your voice steady, your body grounded, your audience engaged. Visualization primes your brain for performance, creating a map for how the moment will unfold. 3. Stack small wins. Don't wait for the big stage to practice confidence. Start in small moments. Speak up in a meeting with one short point. Ask a thoughtful question in a group. Share your opinion with a stranger. Each small win tells your brain, I can do this. And over time, those small wins compound into unshakable confidence. And perhaps most importantly, own your story. Confidence isn't about pretending to be flawless. It's about being authentic enough to show up as yourself. People don't connect to perfection. They connect to honesty. If your voice shakes, let it. If your hands tremble, breathe through it. What matters is that you keep going, because each time you do, you prove to yourself that you are stronger than your fear. Think about some of the leaders you admire. Many of them didn't start out as natural orators. They built their confidence over time. They failed, stumbled, recovered, and returned. Each time, their presence grew, not because they never felt nervous, but because they refused to let nerves dictate their voice. Here's a small exercise you can try today. The next time you speak, whether in a meeting, on a call, or even with a friend, Imagine your words traveling, not just a few feet, but across a room. Project your energy as though your voice has weight. Don't force volume. Instead, breathe deeply and let your words ride the air with calm strength. Notice how people lean in when your voice carries quiet conviction. Remember this: people don't remember every detail you say. They remember how you made them feel. If your presence feels grounded, they will feel safe. If your tone feels certain, they will feel trust. If your delivery feels intentional, they will feel respect. Confidence isn't about removing fear. It's about radiating steadiness, even in the middle of it. So the next time your heart races and your palms sweat, don't think of it as a flaw. Think of it as energy. Channel it, shape it. Let your posture hold you. Let your tone anchor you. Let your pauses remind everyone, including yourself, that you belong here. Because you do. Confidence transforms an ordinary sentence into a statement that lingers. It turns a simple idea into a movement. And when you combine confidence with clarity, structure, and authenticity, you don't just speak, you lead. Here's a secret few people ever truly understand. The smartest speakers in the room aren't always the ones talking the most. They're the ones listening. Not the kind of half-listening where your eyes glance up while your mind waits for its turn to speak. I mean real listening. The kind where you lean in, absorb not just words but tone, emotion, pauses. The kind where the other person feels, maybe for the first time in a long time, that they are fully seen. Why does listening make you sound smart? Because your responses come from depth, not reaction. Because when you listen closely, your words afterward carry weight. You're not shooting from the hip. You're reflecting, absorbing, then responding with precision. That difference is everything. Think of a conversation where someone interrupted you constantly, eager to prove how much they knew. How did it make you feel? Probably dismissed, maybe even annoyed. Now think of the opposite. A moment when someone gave you their undivided attention, nodded at the right times, asked follow-up questions. Didn't it feel different? Didn't it make you trust them more? That's the effect smart listening creates. It transforms conversations into connections. We live in a noisy world where most people are too busy talking to hear. But when you choose to listen with intent, you stand out like a calm river in a storm. People feel safe with you. They open up. And when they open up, you gain insight into what really matters to them. Insight you could never access if you were only focused on your next clever reply. Listening is not silence. It's participation. It's the lift of your eyebrows at the right moment, the lean of your shoulders toward the speaker, the small affirmations like, "I see," or "That makes sense." It's your body saying, "You matter right now." Because when people feel they matter, they reveal the truth beneath their words. And here's the irony. Listening gives you more power than dominating ever could. When you listen, you discover the details that allow your message to land perfectly. You hear the frustrations, the values, the hopes of the person across from you. Then, when you do speak, your words feel tailored, precise. They feel like an answer, not a performance. That's what makes you unforgettable. Consider this example. A friend tells you they're overwhelmed at work. You could brush it off with, "Yeah, I know. Work sucks." But that doesn't make them feel heard. Instead, try. It sounds like you've been carrying a heavy load. What's been the hardest part? Notice the difference. One shows you weren't really listening. The other shows you absorbed, reflected, and cared enough to dive deeper. That one question changes the entire dynamic. This is why leaders who listen inspire loyalty. Employees don't follow bosses who talk over them. They follow leaders who hear them. Negotiators who listen uncover what the other side really wants, giving them an advantage no aggressive argument could match. In relationships, listening builds love. Partners don't stay for fancy speeches. They stay because they feel understood. So how do you practice smart listening? First, be fully present. Put the phone away. Stop scanning the room. Make eye contact. Let your body signal, "I'm here. I'm with you." You'd be surprised how rare that gift is in today's distracted world. Second, reflect back. After someone speaks, mirror their key points. Say, "So what I'm hearing is," or "It sounds like you're saying." This does two things. It confirms you understood, and it makes them feel valued. Third, ask better questions. Don't settle for surface replies. If someone shares something, ask, "Can you tell me more about that?" Or, "What happened next?" These questions show you care about depth, not just surface noise. Fourth, listen to understand, not to reply. This is the hardest. Most people are rehearsing their answer while the other person is still talking. Smart listening means quieting that urge. You're not racing to speak. You're absorbing first, shaping later. Try this the next time you're in a tense discussion. Instead of defending yourself immediately, pause and ask, "What are you really upset about right now?" That one question, born of listening, can dissolve conflict in seconds. Suddenly, you're not the opponent, you're the ally. Even in interviews, listening is a secret weapon. Many candidates walk in trying to impress with rehearsed answers, but the smartest ones listen first. They notice what the interviewer emphasizes, then shape their answers to fit. That's not manipulation, that's alignment. And alignment wins trust. Think of listening as collecting puzzle pieces. Each word, tone, and pause is a piece. If you're only focused on speaking, you'll miss half the pieces, and your response will never complete the picture. But if you gather patiently, when you do speak, you reveal the full image. People see you as thoughtful, wise, and intentional. Let's not forget, the best listeners also listen beyond words. They catch the sigh between sentences, the hesitation before an answer, the shift in tone. They hear what's not said as much as what is. And when they respond, they address the heart of the matter. That's why people walk away from conversations with great listeners saying, "You really get me." And here's the greatest gift of listening. It doesn't just make you a better communicator. It makes you a better human. It builds empathy, deepens relationships, strengthens trust. And those qualities don't fade when the conversation ends. They shape your entire presence in the world. So here's your challenge. For the next week, practice one rule. Speak half as much. Listen twice as much. Notice how people react when you truly hear them. Notice how your own responses feel clearer, sharper, more respected. Because in the end, speaking smart isn't just about the words you say. It's about the silence you keep, the space you create, and the understanding you offer. The smartest voice in the room isn't always the loudest. It's the one that listens first, then speaks with clarity, born of connection. Sometimes it isn't what you say that weakens your message. It's what you add without realizing. Little sounds, soft phrases, hesitant qualifiers. They sneak in like thieves and steal the sharpness of your voice one syllable at a time. These are filler words and weak language, and while they may seem harmless in casual talk, They become dangerous when you want your words to carry influence. Think of how often you hear phrases like, like, you know, basically, I think, maybe, or sort of. They pour out of people's mouths like background noise. On their own, they're small, but repeated over and over. They tell the listener, this person isn't sure, this person isn't steady, this person isn't confident. And here's the heartbreaking part. You might have the best idea in the room, but if it's wrapped in filler, it will be dismissed before it even lands. Let's see it in action. Imagine someone stands up in a meeting and says, I, kind of think we should maybe try, like, another plan. Now, imagine the same thought spoken cleanly. I believe we need a better plan. Let's explore other options. Both sentences carry the same message, but only one feels strong, direct, and worth following. That's the difference filler words make. They don't just pad your speech, they poison your authority. Why do we use them? Because filler words are verbal anxiety. They show up when your mouth outruns your brain. You're thinking as you talk, and you don't want silence to betray your uncertainty. So you stuff the space with sounds. But here's the truth. Silence doesn't betray you. It strengthens you. A pause is more powerful than any could ever be. Silence signals control. It tells your listener, I'm choosing my words, not scrambling for them. Weak language works the same way. These are phrases that shrink your voice before it's even heard. Think about lines like, I'm not an expert, but, or, this might sound stupid, but, or, I just wanted to say. These phrases are apologies disguised as introductions. They undermine your message before it leaves your lips. Instead of commanding the room, you've already handed your power away. But here's the shift. Smart speakers don't beg to be heard. They believe they should be heard. They don't make themselves small to appear polite. They speak with clarity and respect at the same time. Instead of, I might be wrong, but here's an idea. Try. Here's an idea I'd like to share. Instead of, I just want to add one thing. Try. One point to add is this. Notice how small adjustments change everything. So how do you begin stripping filler and weak language out of your vocabulary? Start with awareness. Record yourself in a casual conversation. Play it back. Count how many times you say, like, or, you know. You'll be shocked. But don't beat yourself up. Awareness is the first step toward change. Next, practice replacing filler with pauses. The next time you feel an or like crawling into your throat, stop, breathe, think, then speak. At first, the silence will feel awkward to you, but to your listener, it will feel intentional. It will make you sound calm, thoughtful, in control. Then, build a set of power phrases to anchor your speech. Write down strong openers like, here's what I believe, or the main idea is, or what matters most is. These phrases become your tools to launch sentences without hesitation. Over time, they'll replace your instinct to apologize or hedge. Tone matters here too. You can speak the smartest sentence in the world, but if your tone drifts upward at the end, making everything sound like a question, it weakens your message. We should launch this project? Sounds tentative. We should launch this project. Sounds certain. Smart speaking isn't just about the words, but how those words land. Here's a real story. A young woman pitched a brilliant idea to her company. She had strong research, beautiful slides, and clear data. But during her presentation, she sprinkled just, and kind of into nearly every sentence. Her confidence disappeared behind the clutter. The feedback? We loved your idea, but we didn't feel the confidence behind it. Her idea didn't fail. Her delivery did. And that's the silent tragedy of filler words. The good news? This is one of the fastest habits to change once you see it. Every time you catch yourself about to say, I think maybe, stop and replace it with, I believe. Every time, just slips in. Pause and let the silence carry instead. Over time, your speech will tighten, sharpen, and glow with strength. Here's a practice exercise. Take any sentence you'd normally hedge and strip it down. Instead of, I was just kind of wondering if we could maybe adjust the deadline. Say, can we adjust the deadline? Instead of, this might sound stupid, but what if we try this approach? Say, here's another approach we could try. Notice how the second versions don't waste space. They own space. Remember, you don't have to be loud to be strong. You don't need to drown people in words to sound intelligent. You need to clear the clutter. Every unnecessary filler, every weak phrase, every apologetic opening dilutes your presence. Cut them out, and suddenly, your message shines. So here's your challenge for the week. Choose one filler word you rely on most. Maybe it's like. Maybe it's Make it your mission to eliminate just that one. Pause instead, then move to the next. Bit by bit, your speech becomes leaner, sharper, smarter. Your words deserve to stand tall without padding. Let them. Your ideas deserve to arrive strong without apology. Deliver them. Because when you strip away filler and weak language, you don't just remove clutter, you reveal the authority that was inside you all along. You can master vocabulary, perfect your structure, speak with confidence, and even listen with razor-sharp attention. But if your words don't feel like you, none of it matters. The smartest way to speak isn't the polished version that sounds rehearsed. It's the authentic version that sounds real. Authenticity is the soul of smart communication. It's the invisible thread that ties your message to your character, your voice to your values, your speech to your story. Think about the times you've been most drawn to someone's words. Chances are it wasn't because they sounded perfect. It was because they sounded true. You could feel they believed what they were saying. You sensed they weren't hiding behind jargon or performance. Their words carried their fingerprints, their personal rhythm, their lived experience, their vulnerability. Authenticity doesn't weaken you. It multiplies your power. Most people think communication is about impressing others. They chase polished delivery, clever phrases, flawless grammar. But real communication isn't about showing off. It's about showing up. And showing up means bringing your real self into the room, not a mask you think people want to see. When you speak authentically, your listeners don't just hear you, they trust you. Let's make it tangible. Imagine two leaders giving a speech about failure. Leader A says, "Failure is unacceptable. We must work harder and never allow it." Sounds strict, but also cold. Leader B says, "I've failed more times than I can count, but every failure taught me something I never could have learned through success. That's why I don't fear failure. I grow from it." Who do you trust? Who do you want to follow? The one who shares truth, not perfection. Authenticity is magnetic because it signals courage. It takes courage to admit flaws, to show emotion, to let your humanity peek through. And ironically, the moment you stop trying to sound smart is the moment you start sounding smarter. Why? Because authenticity strips away clutter. It leaves only clarity, simplicity, and sincerity. So how do you bring authenticity into your daily speech? First, speak from experience. Don't be afraid to ground your ideas in your own life. Instead of quoting theory, say, "Here's what I went through," or "Here's what I learned." When your words carry the weight of lived truth, they ring louder than any textbook definition. Second, own your imperfections. Smart doesn't mean flawless. Smart means self-aware. If you don't know everything, say so. If you made a mistake, admit it. "I don't have all the answers, but here's what I believe," builds more trust than pretending to be omniscient. Listeners don't want superheroes. They want humans they can connect to. Third, let your emotions live in your voice. Too often, people suppress passion in an attempt to sound professional. But emotion is intelligence in action. It shows you care. If you're moved by a subject, let it color your tone. If a story makes you laugh, let it show. If it brings a lump to your throat, don't hide it. Emotion is the bridge between your words and your audience's heart. Fourth, drop the mask. Don't say what you think sounds impressive. Say what feels honest, respectful, and clear. If you truly care about connection, choose honesty over polish. People can smell performance from miles away, but they lean into sincerity. Let's return to history for a moment. Some of the world's greatest communicators, Mandela, Oprah, Brené Brown, didn't become unforgettable because they sounded flawless. They became unforgettable because they sounded real. Mandela didn't hide the pain of prison. He spoke through it. Oprah didn't sugarcoat her struggles. She shared them. Brené Brown didn't pretend vulnerability was weakness. She proved it was strength. Each of them brought authenticity to the stage, and that authenticity became their brilliance. And here's the paradox. Authenticity doesn't just connect you to others. It connects you to yourself. When you stop pretending, you start believing your own words more deeply. Your voice grows steadier because it's aligned with your values. Your presence grows stronger because it's rooted in truth. You feel less pressure to remember lines because all you have to remember is who you are. But authenticity does come with a challenge: the fear of judgment. Most people hide behind polished masks because they worry their raw self won't be enough. They fear vulnerability will be mistaken for weakness. Yet time and again, the opposite proves true. When you reveal your real self, people don't walk away. They lean closer. They don't see weakness. They see courage. They don't doubt you. They respect you. So here's your practice. The next time you're about to speak, whether it's in a meeting, a presentation, or a one-on-one, pause and ask yourself, am I speaking from truth or from performance? If it's truth, you'll feel grounded, natural, at ease. If it's performance, you'll feel strained, rehearsed, disconnected. Choose truth. Every time you do, you strengthen the bond between your words and your identity. And don't be afraid to show emotion in moments that matter. If your hands shake because you care, let them. If your voice cracks when you share something personal, let it. Those moments won't make people doubt you. They'll make people remember you. Because humanity is what resonates most. Authenticity also means aligning your words with your actions. If you preach honesty, but dodge questions, people notice. If you talk about humility, but constantly self-promote, people notice. Authenticity is less about what you say and more about whether your words and actions match. When they do, your credibility skyrockets. Here's something to try. Tell one short personal story in your next important conversation. Not to show off, not to dramatize, but to reveal truth. Maybe it's about a time you struggled, or a mistake you made, or a lesson you learned the hard way. Watch how people respond. They'll lean in, they'll connect, they'll trust. Because in the end, authenticity is the strongest form of intelligence in communication. It's clarity without ego, confidence without arrogance, presence without pretense. When you speak authentically, you stop performing and start connecting. And connection is the real measure of communication. So, let this be your reminder. You don't have to be someone else to speak smart. You already have everything you need: the words, the stories, the values. All you need now is the courage to bring them forward. When you do, you won't just sound smart, you'll sound unforgettable. Picture this. Your palms are damp, your pulse quickens, and your mind runs faster than your mouth can keep up. You're about to walk into a job interview, pitch a project, or have that difficult conversation you've been putting off. These are the high-stakes moments, the moments that can shift careers, relationships, and reputations. And in these moments, speaking smart isn't optional, it's survival. Here's the truth. Most people overlook under pressure. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your preparation. That means if you've only relied on improvisation and hope, nerves will take over. But if you've trained your voice, your structure, and your mindset, those same nerves transform into energy that fuels clarity. Think of athletes before a game. They don't wait for the whistle to get ready. They visualize the plays, rehearse the moves, and prepare their bodies for performance. Smart speakers do the same. They don't wing it when the stakes are high. They condition themselves so that when pressure arrives, they can step forward, calm, steady, and persuasive. It begins with clarity. Before any high-stakes conversation, ask yourself 3 questions. What outcome do I want? What is the single most important idea I must deliver? How do I want the other person to feel when this is over? Those 3 answers become your compass. They give your words purpose. They transform your tone from scattered to intentional. In job interviews, this clarity means you don't memorize robotic answers. You prepare stories of challenges, actions, and results. When you share real experiences instead of scripted lines, you sound confident, human, and credible. For example, in my last role, we were 2 weeks behind schedule. I took the lead in restructuring our workflow, and we delivered ahead of deadline. That moment taught me the power of focus and collaboration. Notice how this doesn't feel memorized. It feels lived. That's what interviewers remember. High-stakes presentations demand the same approach. Fear here usually comes not from speaking itself, but from uncertainty. What if I forget? What if I freeze? What if they judge me? Smart speakers counter this by mastering their message inside out. They don't just know the slides. They know the story. They don't just rehearse words. They rehearse rhythm. They visualize themselves delivering, not with panic, but with poise. And here's the secret. The more you focus on serving the audience, the less you obsess about yourself. Nervousness is self-centered energy. How do I look? How do I sound? But service shifts the spotlight. How can I help them? How can I move them? When you focus outward, fear dissolves. Conflict is another high-stakes arena. Emotions run high, voices rise, and clarity often disappears. But smart communication shines brightest here. Instead of reacting, you pause. Instead of defending, you listen. Instead of attacking, you respond slowly, clearly, firmly. Imagine someone in a meeting saying, "That idea is ridiculous. You don't know what you're doing." A reactive response might be, "You're wrong. You don't get it." But a smart response sounds like, "I hear your perspective. Let me share another way of looking at it." No raised voice, no ego, just calm strength. And calm strength is disarming. Remember this: the smartest voice in a heated room is often the calmest. Calm doesn't mean weak. It means centered. It shows you're not rattled, not easily provoked, not desperate to win. It shows you are in control of yourself, and that control commands respect. So how can you prepare yourself to speak smart when the pressure is highest? Try these 5 strategies. 1. Breathe before you speak. A single deep breath resets your nervous system. It slows your racing heart and steadies your voice. Think of it as pressing the reset button before words leave your mouth. 2. Fall back on structure. When nerves blur your thoughts, use a simple framework. Here's the issue. Here's my proposal. Here's why it matters. This 3-step model cuts through chaos and delivers clarity. 3. Slow down. Under pressure. Most people speed up. Fast speech signals panic. Slow speech signals control. Let each sentence land before you rush to the next. 4. Focus on tone, not just words. You can say, "I disagree," in a way that feels respectful, or in a way that feels combative. Same words, different impact. Tone shapes whether people resist you or respect you. 5. Visualize the win. Before the moment begins, picture yourself speaking with calm confidence. See the audience nodding, the conversation ending on a strong note. Your brain doesn't know the difference between imagined success and rehearsed success. It prepares you for both. Let's apply this to real life. You're about to give a big presentation. Instead of thinking, "Don't mess this up," think, "How can I make this clear and valuable for them?" Then, when you step up, breathe. Start slower than feels natural. Anchor your message in 3 clear points. Use pauses like punctuation. Watch as the room begins to follow your pace, your rhythm, your calmness. Or imagine you're having a tough conversation with a loved one. Emotions swirl. Your instinct is to defend, but you choose a pause. You listen. You reflect their feelings. "I hear that you're frustrated." Then you add your truth. "Here's what matters to me." Suddenly, the energy shifts from battle to dialogue. That's smart communication under fire. The beauty is this: high-stakes moments don't have to paralyze you. They can define you. They can become the stage where your presence shines brightest. And when you prepare with clarity, structure, and calm, those moments transform from threats into opportunities. Because at the end of the day, people won't remember every fact you present, every argument you make, or every statistic you share. What they will remember is how you made them feel in that moment that mattered. If you spoke with steadiness when others shook, if you responded with clarity when others scrambled, if you carried calm strength when others cracked, that becomes your reputation. That becomes your power. So the next time the stakes are high and your voice feels small, remember, you don't need to be flawless. You need to be focused. You don't need to silence your nerves. You need to shape them. And when you do, you'll discover that the moments that once terrified you can become the very moments that define you. When you strip communication down to its core, every word you speak is trying to do one of 3 things: explain, connect, or persuade. Explanation is clarity, making sure people understand. Connection is authenticity, making sure people feel. But persuasion is influence, making sure people act. And persuasion, when done with integrity, is one of the most powerful tools you can ever master. Now let's get this straight. Persuasion isn't manipulation. Manipulation twists words to trick, deceive, or pressure. Persuasion is different. It's about presenting ideas in a way that makes sense logically, feels right emotionally, and comes from someone credible enough to trust. The ancient Greeks knew this long before us. Aristotle described persuasion as a balance of three forces: logos, logic; pathos, emotion; and ethos, credibility. Over 2,000 years later, these remain the pillars of smart speaking. Start with logos, logic. This is the backbone of persuasion. It's facts, evidence, structure. Logic appeals to the mind. If you're presenting a new idea at work, logos is your research, your data, your clear reasoning. It's what makes people think. This makes sense. But logic alone rarely moves people. You can have airtight facts and still fail to persuade if the heart isn't engaged. That's where pathos, emotion, enters. Pathos is the human layer. It's telling the story of the frustrated customer rather than just quoting the sales numbers. It's painting the picture of what life could look like if your idea works. People rarely act because of numbers alone. They act because of how those numbers make them feel. Emotion drives motion. And then there's ethos, credibility. Why should they believe you? Ethos comes from your track record, your expertise, and even more importantly, your character. If people sense integrity in you, they'll trust your words. If they sense arrogance or dishonesty, they'll resist, no matter how logical or emotional your argument. Ethos is about alignment. Do your words match your actions? Do you speak with humility and authority balanced together? The most persuasive communicators weave all three together. Think of a leader introducing a new initiative. They share the data that proves the need, logos. They tell a story about how it will improve people's lives, pathos. And they speak from a place of credibility, showing they've walked the path themselves, ethos. The result? Their audience doesn't just understand. They believe, they care, and they act. Let's test this idea with a scenario. Imagine you're asking your team to adopt a new tool. A purely logical approach sounds like, "This tool is 30% faster and saves us 2 hours a week." Logical, yes, but not persuasive enough. A purely emotional approach might be, "Wouldn't it feel amazing to finish your work earlier and leave on time for once?" Inspiring, but maybe not convincing by itself. Ethos alone could sound like, "Trust me. I've been in this field long enough to know this tool will help." Credible, but not complete. Now weave them. "This tool will save us 2 hours a week." Logos. Imagine leaving work on time and having more energy for your family. Pathos. I've personally tested it and seen the results. It changed how I work, and I know it can for you too. Ethos. That's persuasion in action. But persuasion goes beyond Aristotle's trio. Psychology has uncovered additional principles that shape human behavior. Here are a few you can begin applying immediately. 1. Reciprocity. People feel compelled to give back when they've received. If you share value first, an insight, a resource, genuine help, others are far more likely to listen when it's your turn to ask. 2. Consistency. Once people commit to something small, they're more likely to follow through on something bigger. Start with simple agreements, then build upward. 3. Social proof. Humans look to others to decide what's safe or smart. That's why reviews matter, why applause spreads in a room. Show that others support your idea, and new people are more likely to join. 4. Liking. We say yes more often to people we like, and we like people who are genuine, relatable, and warm. That means persuasion often begins not with argument, but with rapport. 5. Scarcity. The rarer something feels, the more valuable it becomes. When you communicate urgency or uniqueness, people listen differently. Here's a practical example. Suppose you're asking your manager for funding on a new project. You could say, "This project has potential. We should try it." Or you could weave in persuasion. Other teams are already using this approach successfully. Social proof. If we don't act now, we risk falling behind. Scarcity. The numbers show we could save 15% annually. Logos. I've worked closely with the pilot program, and I believe in its impact. Ethos. And just imagine the pride we'll feel leading the company into innovation. Pathos. That's persuasion, layered, powerful, and hard to ignore. The danger, of course, is misusing these tools. Persuasion without integrity becomes manipulation. Scarcity becomes fear-mongering. Social proof becomes peer pressure. Logos becomes deception. But when used ethically, persuasion isn't about forcing people. It's about illuminating truth in a way they can grasp, feel, and trust. So how do you train yourself to persuade without pressure? First, focus on clarity. If you can't explain your idea in a single sentence, it's not ready. Persuasion thrives on simplicity, not complexity. Second, anchor in empathy. Ask yourself, what matters most to them? What do they care about? Then shape your message around their values, not just your own. Third, tell stories. A statistic might inform the mind, but a story transforms the heart. Numbers give scale, but stories give soul. Fourth, match your tone to your message. Passion when it's needed, calm authority when it's needed. Flexibility is power. Finally, believe in what you're saying. You cannot transfer conviction you don't have. If you're persuading yourself halfway through your own argument, your audience will feel it. But if you're rooted in truth, your confidence will naturally carry. The reality is, life is persuasion. Every time you pitch an idea, ask for a raise, suggest a restaurant, or convince your child to eat vegetables, you're persuading. The question isn't whether you'll persuade, but how. Will you stumble and pressure, or will you inspire and influence? The best persuaders don't push. They invite. They don't overwhelm. They align. They don't manipulate. They illuminate. They make it easy for others to say yes, because they've painted the picture so clearly, so emotionally, so credibly, that the decision feels natural. And when you learn to persuade this way, with logos, pathos, ethos, and psychology aligned, you don't just win arguments. You win trust. You win opportunities. You win influence that lasts long after the conversation ends. There is a reason you remember a story long after you've forgotten a fact. It's not because you're careless with memory. It's because your brain is wired to hold on to narrative. Stories light up more parts of the brain than raw information ever could. A fact slips away. A story sticks. That's why the smartest communicators don't just present data or arguments. They wrap them in stories. Storytelling isn't decoration. It's persuasion disguised as entertainment. Memory disguised as meaning. Think back to the last time someone gave you instructions. If they rattled off a list of dry steps, chances are you forgot half by the next day. But if they told you a short story, "When I first tried this, here's what happened," you probably still remember. Stories work because they transport us. They let us live inside another experience without leaving the room. And when we live it, we don't just understand, we feel. Neuroscience proves this. When you hear a story, your brain doesn't only process language, it simulates the experience. If the story describes the smell of bread, your sensory cortex fires. If it describes running, your motor cortex activates. That's why stories don't feel like information. They feel like reality. And reality is what changes people. So how do you use storytelling as a superpower in your own speaking? You follow a simple arc that has guided humans since campfires and cave paintings. Setup, conflict, resolution, message, setup. Place your listener in a scene. Give them just enough detail to imagine themselves there. I walked into the office, and the tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Immediately, they're leaning forward. Conflict. Every story needs friction. Without it, there's no momentum. Show the challenge, the mistake, the risk. Our project was weeks behind, and my boss was losing patience. Now the listener feels urgency, resolution. This is where you show what shifted, what you tried, how it worked. Instead of panicking, I broke the project into micro deadlines, and slowly, the chaos turned into order. Resolution gives hope. Message. End with the meaning behind the moment. That experience taught me leadership isn't about shouting louder. It's about creating clarity when others feel lost. The message is the takeaway the listener carries away, as if it's their own. This structure works everywhere, from presentations to one-on-one conversations. The setup hooks attention, the conflict builds tension, the resolution delivers satisfaction, and the message makes it useful. Without the message, a story is just entertainment. With the message, a story becomes influence. Now, you may be thinking, but I don't have big stories. You don't need them. You don't need to climb Mount Everest or survive a shipwreck. Everyday stories are often the most powerful because they're relatable. A story about learning from a failed exam, missing a train, or having a tough talk with your child can carry more weight than a grand adventure. Why? Because your listener can see themselves in it. Here's an example. Suppose you want to encourage your team not to give up on a difficult project. You could say, "Don't quit. Persistence matters." True, but forgettable. Or you could say, "Last year, I planted a small lemon tree in my yard. For months, nothing happened. I watered it, cared for it, and still, no fruit. I almost ripped it out. But one morning, I stepped outside, and there it was, tiny yellow buds. It reminded me that growth is invisible until suddenly. It's undeniable. This project is our lemon tree. Let's not give up before the fruit comes." Which version do you think your team will remember? Stories also humanize you. They show you're not just a talking head with abstract ideas. You're a person with experiences, failures, and triumphs. When you share a story, you invite connection. People see not just your message, but your humanity. And humanity is what people trust. Let's talk practical. To sharpen your storytelling, start a story bank. Write down short experiences from your life. A challenge you overcame, a moment you failed, a time you laughed until your stomach hurt, a decision you regret, a lesson you learned unexpectedly. Over time, you'll have dozens of stories ready to use in the right moment. You don't need them all memorized word for word. You just need the skeleton: setup, conflict, resolution, message, Fill in the details naturally when you tell it. Pay attention to details, not long-winded detail, strategic detail. I was driving an old beat-up Honda with a cracked windshield. Paints a sharper picture than I was driving a car. A single detail pulls people in. Too many drowns them. And remember, delivery matters. A story isn't just the words. It's the pauses, the pacing, the tone. When you reach the conflict, slow down. Lower your voice. Make your listener feel the tension. When you reach the resolution, let your tone rise, your rhythm quicken. It's like music. Storytelling is less about reciting and more about conducting emotion. The final key: connect your story back to your audience. Don't just say, "That's my story." Say, "And here's why this matters to you." Draw the bridge. That's when your story shifts from personal memory to shared wisdom. Because storytelling isn't about performance, it's about purpose. It's about shaping raw experiences into tools of connection, influence, and inspiration. And when you use it well, you transform from someone who simply speaks to someone who moves people. So the next time you want to inspire, persuade, or connect, don't just throw out facts or arguments. Tell a story. Give your listener a scene, a conflict, a resolution, and a message. Let them see, feel, and live it. Because stories don't just inform, they transform. They don't just fill the air, they fill the heart. And once you unlock storytelling as your superpower, your voice won't just be heard, it will be remembered. There's a certain energy some people bring into a room that makes heads turn before they even speak. They don't need to shout. They don't need to beg for attention. Their presence does the work for them. That's charisma. And while many assume charisma is some mystical trait you're either born with or not, the truth is much simpler. Charisma is a skill, a blend of behaviors, signals, and choices that anyone can learn. At its heart, charisma isn't about being the loudest or the flashiest. It's about how you make others feel in your presence. People may forget what you said, but they rarely forget how you made them feel. Charisma is the ability to leave someone feeling seen, valued, and energized simply by the way you engage with them. Researchers who study charisma often break it into three components: presence, warmth, and power. Presence means you're fully here, not half scrolling your phone, not rehearsing your next line while they're still speaking. It's eye contact that lingers, body language that's open, and attention that makes someone feel like the only person in the world. Have you ever spoken to someone who was half distracted? You felt invisible. Presence is the opposite. It's treating someone as though they matter enough for your full focus. Warmth is the emotional layer. It's conveyed through tone, empathy, and subtle kindness. Warmth makes people relax around you. It's why a genuine smile or a nod at the right time makes your words land more deeply. Warmth signals, "I'm safe. You can trust me." Power is the third piece. It's not dominance or intimidation. It's the quiet confidence that says, "I can handle this situation." Power shows in posture, in calm voice control, in the certainty of your statements. Without power, warmth risks being mistaken for softness. Without warmth, power risks feeling cold. True charisma blends both. Now, think of someone you consider charismatic. Maybe it's a speaker whose words linger with you. Maybe it's a friend who lights up every gathering. Chances are they balance these three components without you even realizing. They give you undivided presence. They radiate warmth, and they project power. The result? You lean in. So how do you cultivate charisma deliberately? Step 1. Train your presence. Start by breaking the habit of distraction. When you're with someone, silence your phone. Hold their eye contact just a little longer than feels comfortable. Use subtle cues, like leaning in slightly or nodding, to show you're engaged. Presence is less about saying the right thing and more about being the right way. Step 2. Increase your warmth. Practice empathy in your responses. Instead of launching straight into advice, reflect what you hear. That sounds frustrating. Let your tone soften when appropriate. Smile more often, not a forced grin, but the kind of smile that comes from genuine interest. Warmth is felt before it's analyzed. Step 3. Project power. Work on posture, shoulders back, chin level, movements measured rather than rushed. Lower your vocal pitch slightly on important statements. It conveys steadiness. And speak with clarity, not over-explanation. Power grows when your words are simple and certain. This is the right path forward. One exercise that combines all three is storytelling. When you tell a story with full presence, your audience feels pulled in. When you add warmth, emotion, humor, vulnerability, they feel connected. When you deliver the resolution with confidence, they feel your power. Storytelling is charisma in action. Charisma also thrives on subtle behaviors, remembering names, noticing details, mirroring body language, asking thoughtful questions. None of these require extroversion. They require attention. Attention creates impact. Here's a secret. Charisma is not about trying to impress. It's about trying to connect. People who try too hard to impress often come off as insincere, but people who focus on connecting create a magnetic pull. Think of the difference between someone who brags about their success versus someone who says, "Here's what I learned when I failed." The second person is far more charismatic because they're human, relatable, and real. And remember, charisma is contextual. In some moments, warmth should lead. In others, power. In a job interview, you lean into presence and power. In comforting a friend, presence and warmth. In leading a team, all three dance together. Practice this. The next time you walk into a room, instead of worrying, "How do I look?" ask, "How do I want others to feel when I leave?" If you want them to feel valued, double your warmth. If you want them to feel inspired, increase your power. If you want them to feel understood, deepen your presence. Shift the focus from you to them. That's where charisma begins. History offers countless examples. Nelson Mandela, even after decades in prison, radiated warmth and presence so powerful, it disarmed those who opposed him. Princess Diana, remembered for her ability to make anyone, from world leaders to children in hospitals, feel deeply seen. Steve Jobs, whose product launches became legendary, not just because of the devices, but because of the charisma with which he told the story of innovation. Each in their own way blended presence, warmth, and power. But charisma doesn't require a stage. It shows up in the hallway conversation, the coffee shop exchange, the dinner table. Every small interaction is a chance to build your charisma muscle. And the beauty is, when you cultivate charisma, it's not just about influencing others. It transforms you. You begin walking taller, listening deeper, smiling more. You carry yourself as someone worth paying attention to, and the world responds. Because charisma isn't magic. It's not luck. It's choice, layered into habit. And when you choose to be present, warm, and powerful consistently, people won't just hear your words, they'll feel drawn to them. So let charisma become not just what you project, but who you are. a blend of presence that grounds, warmth that invites, and power that inspires. That's when your voice moves from being merely heard to being unforgettable. Everyday conversations may not look like grand speeches or stage presentations, but they carry just as much influence, sometimes more. It's in those subtle, ordinary exchanges that decisions are shaped, trust is built, and opportunities either open or close. Influence in conversation isn't about dominating or persuading at all costs. It's about understanding the psychology of interaction and guiding it with integrity. The truth is, influence is woven into nearly every dialogue you have. When you suggest where to eat, pitch an idea in a meeting, comfort a friend, or negotiate with your boss, you are exercising influence. The question is whether you're doing it haphazardly or deliberately. Smart communicators know the science and the art of influence, and they use both to create connection that leads to action. Psychologists have long identified principles that shape human decision-making. Let's explore 5 of the most powerful and how to apply them seamlessly in conversation. 1. Reciprocity. People naturally want to return favors. If you give first, others feel compelled to give back. In conversation, this doesn't mean handing out bribes. It means offering value. Share an insight, give genuine appreciation, or help solve a small problem. That generosity primes people to listen when it's your turn to ask. For instance, instead of diving straight into your request, start by saying, "I know you've been working hard on this project. I pulled some resources that might make your life easier." Watch how much more open they become to your ideas afterward. 2. Consistency. Humans like to act in alignment with their previous commitments. That's why smart conversationalists start small. Instead of asking someone to jump into a huge decision, invite them into a small agreement first. Do you agree this is a challenge we need to address? Once they say yes, it becomes easier for them to support your proposed solution, because their identity is now tied to being consistent with that agreement. 3. Social proof. We look to others to decide what's right. That's why reviews sway us, why laughter spreads in a crowd, why trends catch on. In a conversation, you can use this subtly. Several teams are already trying this approach, and they've seen great results. By showing others have acted, you make your listener feel safer in considering it too. 4. Liking. We're more likely to be influenced by people we like, and we like people who like us. That means listening, mirroring, finding common ground, and showing genuine interest. Something as simple as remembering a detail they shared last week. "How did your daughter's recital go?" can shift a conversation from transactional to relational. And when relationships deepen, influence flows naturally. 5. Scarcity. We value what feels rare. A conversational way to use scarcity is highlighting opportunity windows. "This grant is only open for another 2 weeks." Or uniqueness. "No other team is positioned like we are to make this work." Scarcity signals urgency and importance, which can move people to act. These principles aren't tricks. They're reflections of how people already think and decide. Using them ethically means aligning your message with genuine value, not fabricating pressure. But influence in conversation isn't just about psychology. It's about presence. If your words say one thing, but your body language says another, your influence fractures. Imagine someone pitching an idea while their shoulders slump, their tone drifts, and their eyes dart away. Even if their logic is sound, the influence is lost. But when your tone is steady, your eye contact firm, your gestures intentional, people feel not just your words, but your conviction. Influence isn't only spoken, it's embodied. Let's break this into a practical example. You want your colleague to support your new project idea. You might begin by giving first, reciprocity. I pulled together some notes that could also help your current project. Then you ask a small question for consistency. Do you agree this is something we should be addressing? You add social proof. Other teams have already piloted this successfully. You connect personally. I know how much you value efficiency. I think this aligns perfectly. And finally, you sprinkle in scarcity. We have a limited window before the budget closes. In a short exchange, you've layered influence naturally. Yet influence doesn't always mean pushing. Sometimes the smartest influence is simply listening deeply, because when someone feels truly heard, they're far more open to hearing you. Influence thrives in reciprocity, not just of favors, but of attention. So resist the urge to dominate. Pause. Let silence invite them in. Ask questions that draw out their perspective. Then, when you finally share your point, it lands on ground you've already softened. Another overlooked influence tool, reframing. Instead of arguing directly against someone's resistance, reframe the way they see it. Suppose someone says, "This idea feels risky." You could counter, "No, it's safe." That creates tension. Or you could reframe, "Yes, there's risk, but consider the bigger risk of staying stuck where we are." Suddenly, you're not fighting their perspective. You're shifting the frame they're looking through. And remember, influence is a long game. You don't have to win every conversation. Sometimes the seeds you plant, through warmth, reciprocity, credibility, sprout later. Smart communicators play for trust, not just immediate results. So next time you're in an everyday exchange, look closer. That small talk? It's a chance to build rapport. That meeting? It's a chance to reframe. That negotiation? It's a chance to weave reciprocity, consistency, proof, liking, and scarcity with authenticity. Influence in conversation isn't about having the loudest voice. It's about having the most aligned voice, a voice that understands psychology, honors integrity, and balances strategy with sincerity. When you practice this, your daily interactions stop being random. They become intentional. They become powerful. And soon you'll notice, you're not just participating in conversations, you're shaping them. Not by force, but by presence. Not by manipulation, but by meaning. And that's the deepest influence of all. The real test of whether speaking smart has become part of who you are isn't found in the big stage moments. It's revealed in the daily habits you practice when nobody's watching. Speeches, presentations, negotiations, they matter. Yes. But it's the way you speak in everyday life, the choices you make sentence by sentence, that builds the foundation of your influence. Speaking smart isn't a switch you flip on when the stakes rise. It's a lifestyle you live, one habit at a time. Think of it like fitness. You don't get strong by lifting weights once. You get strong by training consistently. Communication works the same way. Your daily habits, how you pause, how you listen, how you choose words, are your workout. Over time, they build your muscle of clarity, confidence, and charisma. So, what are the habits that transform speaking smart from an occasional skill into second nature? 1. Thinking before speaking. It sounds simple, but it's rare. Most people react. Smart communicators pause. Even half a second of silence before responding can shift your words from impulsive to intentional. Make this a daily habit. When someone asks you something, breathe, think, then answer. 2. Embracing silence. Silence isn't awkward, it's powerful. It gives your listener space to process. It signals confidence. It removes fillers. Practice this daily by catching yourself before saying or like. Replace the filler with a pause. Notice how your words instantly feel more grounded. 3. Sharpening your word bank. Each day, pick one strong, precise word to add to your vocabulary. Not fancy jargon, just clean, powerful words. Swap really good for effective. Swap kind of hard for challenging. Over time, these words become tools that sharpen your impact. 4. Listening deeper. Make it a habit to listen not just for words, but for emotions. Pay attention to tone, body language, pauses. When someone finishes, reflect back what you heard. Sounds like you're feeling stuck. That reflection builds connection instantly. 5. Practicing structure. Even in casual conversation. Practice speaking in threes: setup, point, close. Instead of rambling, train yourself to land thoughts with structure. This habit will carry into presentations and interviews effortlessly. 6. Daily reflection. At the end of each day, ask, did my words move closer to clarity or away from it? Reflection transforms mistakes into lessons. It ensures growth doesn't stall. 7. Continuous learning. Read widely. Listen to great speakers. Study their rhythm, their tone, not to copy, but to absorb patterns of effective communication. Smart speakers are lifelong learners. 8. Rehearsing for real life. Don't wait for a big speech to practice. Rehearse small moments. Before making a request at work, practice your sentence once in your head. Before giving feedback, imagine the other person's reaction and shape your delivery. Micro rehearsals build macro confidence. 9. Anchoring authenticity. Each day, remind yourself, your power isn't in pretending, it's in being real. Make vulnerability a habit. Share small, honest stories. Admit mistakes quickly. Authenticity repeated becomes trust multiplied. 10. Cultivating calm. Stressful conversations will happen daily. Train your calm muscle by catching your breath before answering, by lowering your tone instead of raising it, by choosing steady pacing. Calmness practiced daily becomes your natural state under fire. These habits may seem small in isolation, but their compound effect is enormous. One pause today, one silence instead of a filler, one moment of deep listening. Each act builds. Over weeks, months, years, you transform. Here's the beauty. Once these habits become natural, you stop trying to speak smart. You simply are a smart speaker. It's woven into you. The way you explain, persuade, connect. All of it feels effortless because it's been shaped by thousands of daily repetitions. And the rewards ripple. Colleagues trust you more. Friends open up to you more. Strangers respect you more. You begin to notice how often people lean in when you talk, how they remember your words, how they carry your influence forward. This is the shift. Speaking smart stops being something you do occasionally. It becomes who you are consistently. Not performance, but presence. Not effort, but identity. So make it your daily practice. Think, pause, listen, reflect. Build your vocabulary, your structure, your calm. Keep learning, keep telling stories, keep choosing authenticity. Every word you speak is a chance to train, to shape, to grow. Because in the end, The goal isn't just to sound intelligent. It's to live intelligently, to communicate in a way that leaves people better than you found them. That's the legacy of a true smart speaker. Now take a breath, because we've traveled far together. We began with the simple frustration of wishing you had said the right thing, and we've built all the way to a life shaped by clarity, authenticity, and influence. Along the way, you've seen how speaking smart isn't about jargon or performance. It's about being intentional, present, and true. You've discovered that confidence isn't arrogance, it's contagious calm. That persuasion isn't manipulation, it's ethical alignment of logic, emotion, and credibility. That storytelling isn't filler, it's the bridge between memory and meaning. You've learned charisma is presence plus warmth plus power. That influence happens in every small conversation, and that daily habits are the foundation where transformation takes root. So where does that leave you now? It leaves you with a choice. Every day from here forward, you can let words spill out thoughtlessly, or you can shape them as tools of impact. You can wait for the rare big moments, or you can practice in every small moment until speaking smart is simply your way of life. Imagine the ripple effect if you do. Imagine being the voice in the room that others trust, instinctively. Imagine building relationships that thrive on respect and authenticity. Imagine walking into high-stakes moments, not with dread, but with a steady calm that shifts the energy around you. This is possible, not someday, today. It begins with the very next sentence you speak. So pause, breathe, think, then speak. Let every word carry your clarity, your conviction, and your care. Because the world doesn't need more noise. It needs your voice, your strong, authentic, unforgettable voice. Go use it.